Well, good day and welcome to you. It is April the 15th. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you happen to be. My name is Gary Willing, and as always, I want to welcome you to this channel and just take the briefest of moments just to point out that if you want to know more about this information, definitely check out some of the websites and the links that I provided in the description portion of these videos so you can get background information about what we talk about here if you want. If you don't worry about it. I'm not saying this because somebody said what they said a few months ago about me telling people about links, accusing me of trying to indoctrinate people about these things. I mean, there's a huge difference between indoctrination and investigation. So when I read what he wrote, I do what they say in texts. I SMH'd. I shook my head. It's like whatever. But no, I'm not trying to indoctrinate anybody. I just, if you want to know more about this, that's the best way to do it. You can do it however you want to do it. More than likely, if you start Googling Maitreya or some of this information, you're going to start to see some of these links anyway. But anyway, you can do it however you want to do it. Now, I want to address a question from Jason M. And the other people, is it Dandelion123, Michael Vessels, who else? Vanessa Rivera. Thank you very much for your comments. I'm just going to kind of focus in on Jason's. And the reason why he wrote this first line, which really tugged at my heartstrings, was because in the last video I did that, but he was just named in the list of the people that I didn't have time to comment about. So he wrote, I would have liked that you replied to my comment with regards to Elijah and Enoch. So I found that I just like, if you want me to comment, this is how you do it. So take Jason's way of doing it. No, but it really, when I read it, I was like, oh, nobody really says it like that. So I'll try to comment. In terms of Elijah and Enoch, to be honest with you, like I had said in my reply to you, Jason, I find religious debates pointless and boring, to be honest. I don't, and it's not that you're trying to debate me. I get that. I think there's other things in what you've commented that we could talk about that I think might be more meaningful to others, So I've left these comments up. If you really want me to comment about such and such, just kind of specify exactly what you want me to talk about. I'm not saying I'm going to tell you the right thing or it's going to be the best answer you ever heard, because I don't know everything about everything. I'm just talking about this information is all. So, but when it comes to religion, like anything else, I do think that we all see things differently. I have encouraged people, and I've even looked at it myself, to try to keep things with an open mind. So with people's comments, and even when people ask me to go and research some spiritual teacher here or there, especially if they're alive, I do. I try to keep an open mind, but I don't think I'm necessarily 100% open-minded either. I don't think anybody is. But I think you can look at something with an open mind and not agree with it, or see that there's truth to it, but yet still have an open mind about it. I do think that you can agree with somebody and be totally closed-minded at the same time. Like I said, I don't think that any one of us truly have an open mind, because we've never seen someone with a truly open mind that sees life, sees others with no prejudice whatsoever yet. And I do think that we talk about the masters on this channel. You might not agree with the truth of the masters, but that these masters manifest their divinity perfectly. They see everything as divinity. They see no separation between them and us, or anybody. And so when they see someone or interact with someone, and we'll see Maitreya interacting with people like this, just like these other masters, with zero prejudice, with no hindrance, and not wanting the other person to change, even in the slightest, but yet love them the exact same way and interact with them that way. We've never seen anybody in real life doing that, because we all have prejudice on some level. Some of us have a lot, some of us have a little. But to say that we're all without prejudice, I don't think there's any truth to that. But anyway, so I with religion especially, and I know you made me laugh when you said, you can call me a fundamentalist. Actually, I never called you a fundamentalist. I inferred it, but I never called you outright as being a fundamentalist, because I don't know you, right? But it's just, people who are fundamental, I think, are missing out on a lot of life to be honest. That's my prejudice toward fundamentalists, is they don't see life as it truly is. And there's more to life than the way that they see it. And it's not just religious fundamentalists. I mean, for example, I don't eat red meat. And I used to be a vegetarian for a long time. And I had a lot of vegetarian friends who were very fundamental about, and fundamentalist in their view about being a vegetarian. Didn't like it when to be around people who were eating meat. They didn't want to smell people cooking meat. You know, they always made people wrong for eating meat. It's a very fundamental way of looking at it. I don't eat beef or pork now. I eat chicken, but I don't eat beef or pork. But I don't beat up people that do. You know what I'm saying? And I don't get run out of a restaurant claiming it's going to make me throw up because I smell cooked beef. You know, but yet that's the way they were. You know, I think they're missing out on a lot of people. They're probably missing out on a lot of friends who eat meat, you know what I mean? Because they don't want to talk to them, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. So, but to get back to the religious side of it is, you know, you can read the Bible, I think, with an open mind. Not you personally, but just anybody. But you have to have some kind of common sense about it. And I'm not saying you don't have common sense. I'm just saying this just as a blanketed statement. You have to kind of look at and read what makes sense as that you can apply to you, I think. Now, you might accuse me of picking and choosing, but I think we all pick and choose whether we realize it or not, actually, right? But now, to get to your questions that I really want to talk about, let's see. You said, I would like you to comment. You can call me a fundamentalist. It's actually a badge of honor. Okay, it's fine. Previous to digging into the Catholic faith and actually, is it catechizing myself? I was deep into Gnostic New Age religion. Now, I don't know what that other word means, so if I mispronounced it, I apologize. I didn't look it up before I started, but I'm going to keep going. I have seen through this mistake because I suspended belief in the truth of my interior experiences. Not an easy task, hence why I stated, quote, you will not understand, unquote. Are you willing to do the same? How are you sure your inner experiences do not have the source in the demonic? How can you know? What are the experiences which have convinced you this development of enlightenment is the correct path? It is a sincere question. With the answer, we could have a sincere dialogue. Okay, so I want to focus on that, Jason, if you don't mind, and not so much the other stuff. Because, anyway, but if you want me to talk about some of the other things, just perhaps do just one thing and we can focus on that and then do another thing in another video or something. Because it would get really long if I tried to address everything that you wrote line by line. All right, so let's see, where is it? Now, in terms of interior experiences or inner experiences, if you want to say it like that, I don't talk about my inner experiences, really. The experiences that I've talked about in my Maitreya playlist happen on the physical plane. You know, they happen in real life. So the inner experiences that I have, I don't see them as demonic or not demonic. I see them as real or unreal. And at this stage of the game, I don't have the discernment to truly have, like, this is absolutely real, and then talk about it and have it mean anything to you and have it be beneficial to you. Because it might not be real. Because some of my inner experiences, they did materialize and did have great spiritual significance for me. Other ones didn't. So I don't talk about this in terms of my inner experiences or any of the dream experiences I had with Maitreya or anything, because they, you know, I don't know. You know what I mean? Now, what I talk about is the external experiences that are quite extraordinary that I can't explain in any other way. I've had other people try to explain it to me about this, that, and the other. Some have said they were demonic, some have, you know, whatever. I don't see life as demonic or not demonic. To me, I put that on par with if I were to go to the doctor with a toothache and he's pulled out a drill, and instead of drilling the tooth, he tried to drill the top of the side of my head, saying, we need to release the evil spirits from you. I would be like, that's okay. You know what I'm saying? I'm good. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't think that that's life at all. I think that those kind of things should have been extrapolated from our vernacular a long time ago. Because science has already disproven a lot of those things. Now, a lot of people still take this mystical approach based on I think they're misinterpreting with the Bible, but that's just the way I see it, right? Now, but I do think that you can look at life as real and unreal, and you can have an open mind about things and say, okay, I think this is real, but right now this isn't. Now, when it comes to this information, I've said this before, you might not be aware of it, but I was initially turned off about it. When I first read Maitreya's Mission Volume 2 by Benjamin Creme, I did not like it at all. I went to go return the book. I put the receipt in the book, and then I kind of was like, that bookstore's too far away. I'll do it tomorrow. And then I'll do it the next day, and blah, blah, blah. And then I realized, I was like, that's probably too long, and they're not going to return it. I mean, I could have theoretically already read the book, right? And then just say, hey, I want my money back. So I kept it. And then I don't know how long it was after that. I picked it up again, and I started reading it, and then okay. And I didn't believe it 100% right then. And okay, fine. And okay, this is kind of entertaining, and that kind of thing. And then I started reading it more and more and more. But you don't have to go much farther than what Jesus said to really see if there's any truth to any of this stuff. It's just a tree is known by its fruit. And that goes with anything, whether it's religion, spirituality, politics, economics, what's going on in the world today. A tree is known by its fruit. It's a truth. It's a very simple truth that Jesus was teaching to very uneducated people at the time, but you can still apply it to your life today. So I talk about it all the times in terms of politics, or in terms of foreign affairs between nations, is politicians on the news talk about how border security or this bailout or more military or more police or more of this will bring about peace and security. Has it? That's what I always say. Has it ever done that? And it doesn't take a lot to really think about it, but it hasn't. In a lot of ways, it's destabilized things in the way that we've done, the way particularly, I'm not picking on the United States, but I am kind of, the way the United States has approached other countries over the past 50 or 100 years. We have more terrorism now than we did 150 years ago. We have more poverty now than we did then. There's more political instability now than we did then. We have more greater weapons that can destroy life on our planet now than we did 200 years ago. So that's the seeds of what we've been doing. The fruit of the seeds of what we've been doing. I always screw that up. So, but then if you look at what Maitreya said, without sharing, there could be no justice, without justice, no peace, without peace, no future. Let me say that again a little slower. Without sharing, there could be no justice, without justice, no peace, and without peace, no future. I see the truth in that. If you take the last part of it, without peace, no future, I take that very seriously. Looking at the world today, with the weapons that we have today, that we can destroy ourselves in the way that we can, and as efficiently as we could destroy ourselves hundreds of times over, we need to create peace, or future is in jeopardy. We're seeing it right now with Ukraine. Now, I'm not going to necessarily go into per se what you talked about in terms of some of these Catholic groups and their biblical, what they think there's a biblical prophecy or whatever about the war in Ukraine and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's a little side note about your comment. That when I read comments like this, people think that is normal. Having that kind of paranoia and that kind of fear is normal, and believing it. But yeah, when somebody like Maitreya or Benjamin Creme talk about peace, that's demonic. I'm saying, it's like, to me, it's like, it makes no sense. The world is totally upside down and backwards. But anyway, so looking at that, I take that part very seriously. And then to look at the sharing, bringing about justice, bringing about peace. Is there any truth to that? And that's why I've even offered up the evidence of just look at the Marshall Plan. Go look at the Wikipedia. You can do that and be a Christian and not change your religious beliefs. Just look at it. Every nation that's listed in Wikipedia that participated in the Marshall Plan has not attacked one another since then. So why not try it globally and see if it doesn't affect the way that other nations start to trust one another? So it doesn't have to be a perfect peace, but it can create somewhat of trust amongst nations so we can start to solve these problems. So I really don't take offense to people thinking Maitreya is the Antichrist. I know there's no truth to any of that. based on my own personal physical plane experiences, not inner experiences, but my own personal experiences. You might not have had those experiences that I've had in the same way. So you might, based on your own reading of the scriptures, think that he is the Antichrist. I don't take issue with that, really, to be honest. But what I do take issue is when Christians especially comment, because that's what they're thinking, that because it's not written in the Bible that we can create peace, and somebody talks about peace, or that we can create peace, that there must be demonic. I take issue with that because that to me is nothing but complacency and paranoia and so forth. But also the fact that because it's written in the Bible, they think the world is going to end. We don't have to do anything, which I don't think that John was talking about that. So that's where I take issue with, not in terms of what they think, because people have listed all sorts of people as being the Antichrist. Now, I think John was talking about a period far greater than what most people think in terms of revelation to be. Talking about a period of several thousand years, starting in his own time, through our time, and on into the future several thousand years. But not talking about the end of the world, but talking about the end of an age moving into another age. That's why we're experiencing such a tumultuous time, because the energies from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius are far different from one another. Now, if you'd think that, there's nothing in the Bible about that, well, if you look at the symbol of the fish, which was the age-old symbol for the constellation of Pisces, is written all throughout the New Testament. The fishermen among men, most of the apostles were fishermen and so forth, and so those were symbols written in there. The people at the time understood that meant that Jesus was the world teacher for that age of Pisces. That's just my interpretation. You might have a totally different interpretation of it, but that's just what I think. Now, in terms of the new age of Aquarius, which the age-old symbol for Aquarius has always been the water carrier. When I look up and see the constellation of Aquarius, I don't see somebody carrying a bucket of water, but they did. Anyway, so they knew that that's kind of what he was talking about when Jesus said, follow the man carrying the bucket of, or the person carrying the bucket of water up the steps and thus prepare the feast, talking about the Lord's Supper, or the Last Supper. Now, to get back to the different interpretations of the Bible and how I think that people have put things in and take things out, when somebody throws a biblical verse my way and I quote it or I start to address it, I actually don't look through my physical Bible. I just go to the Bible app. And there's all these different Bible versions of the same verse. So one of the verses, it says that follow the woman carrying a bucket of water. The other one said follow a man. Other one said, up the steps and thus prepare the feast. Other one is through the door and up. It doesn't really matter, but there are different interpretations even of that. So it's just, you have to kind of look at it and see what you really need to focus. I mean, to me, I'm not saying you personally, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying for me, I look at it and see what applies to this or not. And if you don't think that you do that, I think we all do that to some degree. We pick and choose what we think is real based on what we read in the Bible, and then we take it and blah, 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 blah. And we either look at it or we don't. But if you look at Revelation, the Jesus that most people think is in Revelation is far different from the historical view of Jesus and what he taught and what he taught and preached. Love thy neighbor. Forgive. You know what I'm saying? Turn the other cheek. Love thy neighbor as thyself was the greatest commandment. Next to, no less great than love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and all thy soul, put no other gods before him. No less great. Yet when somebody like Maitreya talks about sharing that's communism, that's evil. No, that's loving thy neighbor, just as Jesus taught. The Jesus that people are expecting to come back is different than the Jesus that I read in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The Jesus that is put out there now by certain groups, political groups, Aryan nation groups, even certain religious groups is far different than what I've read, what I can personally read for myself in there. Because there's no tolerance. There's no love. It's all been taken out. And yet they talk about it in the terms of love, but there really is there? I have to believe in someone that somebody else says that I should believe in, or I'm going to go to hell. How is that love? That's far different than the Jesus that I read in there. But if you take the teachings of Jesus, love thy neighbor, what you sow shall you reap, talking about the law of cause and effect, those things will change your life if you apply them. Now, my own outer plane experiences with Maitreya had the same effect. The teachings that he gave me at the times that he gave me changed my life for the better. So the fruit of those trees, of his teachings, changed my life. To get back to the principle of sharing. He says, without sharing, there could be no justice. Without justice, no peace. Without peace, no future. If, I offer this up, like I said about the Marshall Plan, have any of those nations attacked one another since? No, they have not. So that's the fruit of the seed of sharing. If you look at the foreign policy of all these nations now, it is not peace. So you can investigate it, and you can get this person's opinion and that person's opinion and this one and this one and this one. But in the end of the day, it hasn't created peace. But yet that's what they keep telling us is going to create peace. So that's why I said I can look at it with open mind, but I'm just telling you that's not going to create peace, because it never has. Why not try the principle of sharing and see if it will do it? If it doesn't, go right back to doing what you're doing. What do we have to lose? Nothing. You know what I'm saying? Now, I think that we should be looking at this from beyond, or transcend our own beliefs and look at it more from what the need is of humanity. We need to create peace so we can have a future for every one of us. But people are caught up in what they think John was said in Revelation. Oh, no, that's different. Well, maybe you're reading the same words that I'm reading, but you're not interpreting what he really said correctly. I might not be. I'm at least willing to admit that. They're not willing to admit that they're not seeing it right. I've never once heard anybody that has ever quoted the Bible to me say, well, I might not be right about this, but I think that you're wrong about this. I'd be fine. You know what I'm saying? Because I've actually have said it multiple times. I might not be reading it right. But again, a tree is known by its fruit. A tree's always known by its fruit. Now, the outer plane experiences that Maitreya, that I've had with Maitreya, some of them were quite extraordinary. I mean, one of them happened to me before I even knew anything about this. I was touring with a group of musicians in Japan. There was a group called the 3 Degrees. You can look them up. They're from Philadelphia. They were in the 70s. They had a couple hits in the 70s. But they were pretty popular in Japan when I toured with them in 93. And I was standing backstage with them. And one lady came up to them and started asking them for their autograph. And then she turned around and offered me the paper and pen and wanted me to sign it. And I kind of said, nah. And she said, no, I want you to have it. And then I started to kind of think, well, maybe I'm getting famous too, But, and I wrote out a peace sign, a heart, and a happy face. And then like I said, I felt really great because somebody asked me for my autograph, but I think she was just being polite. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of looked at myself, now I kind of look back and go, yeah, you weren't as famous as you thought, kid. But anyway, but when I got back from Japan to the United States, I was trying to meet the guitar player for the band that I played in. I needed to give him my passport because we were going to go to Saudi Arabia in a few weeks on a tour. And I would know right where he is, where he was speaking now, because I go by there all the time, but I got lost. And I ended up in Marietta. And in Marietta, there is a landmark. You can look it up. It's called the Big Chicken. It's a wooden structure outside in front of the building of this KFC. It's a Kentucky Fried Chicken. And it's this red and white and yellow chicken whose mouth and eyes move. I mean, it's a redneck landmark in Marietta, Georgia. So, you see signs for other businesses, it's a mile and a half down on the right from the Big Chicken or whatever, right? And so people know where it is if you're from, but I didn't know where, I mean, that was the first time I think I'd ever seen it, but I was totally lost. So I went to go call my friend from a payphone because we didn't have cell phones back then. And I pulled into this gas station right next to the Big Chicken. It was a little 3-pump gas station with a mechanic's garage in it and a payphone. That was all it was. And I pulled in, and the payphone had graffiti all over it. And it wasn't a vision. It wasn't an inner experience that I had as I was making this call. It was written on the phone, just like all the other graffiti on this phone was. But it said, "To Gary." There was a heart sign, a peace sign, a happy face, a cross, and sign the Christ, just like an autograph. And because I didn't know anything about these miracles at the time or any of these things happening to people, I just said, who's Gary? He signs his name just like I did in Japan. Peace, heart, but except the heart is different than the peace. And, that it was heart, peace, and happy face instead of peace, heart, and happy face, if you can visualize that. And I didn't think anything of it and drove away. And then I fell into Maitreya's Mission Volume 2 book, written by Benjamin Creme sometime after that. Didn't like it, put it down, started reading it again. And then he said somewhere in the book he was talking about miracles, and then somebody asked him about some of the personal experiences that they had and so forth. And I was like, I didn't think about it right away, but I started thinking about it one day. I was like, wait a minute, what about that whole thing? I mean, who does that? I mean, that's kind of crazy coincidence. And so I asked Benjamin Creme, and he said, yes, Maitreya put it on that payphone. Now, I've had other people, that was his explanation of it. Maitreya put it on the phone. That makes sense to me. That actually rang as true for me, based on what I had started to read in his book. Other people have explained it that somebody flew all the way from Japan, spent thousands of dollars on a flight, and spent hotel rooms and stuff, and did it. Other people have said it was Satan that did it. Other people have said that maybe my mom drove from South Carolina and did it. Or it was that guitar player that must have done it. But he was probably 5, 6, 7 miles away from where I was. Those are all explanations. I don't think that they're true, but those are all explanations of what happened. The only thing that rings as true for me was Maitreya did it. Not to fool me, not to deceive me, but just to say, you heart, peace, and happy face. You have to have love before you can have peace and then the happiness that you want in the world and within ourselves. And so the other thing that I found, another experience that I found quite extraordinary in the outer plane was, the outer physical plane, was when I was cleaning this building, trying to get I was working 3 jobs, and I was waiting tables in the morning and at night. And then after that night job, I would go and clean this building on the airport. It wasn't the big airport that everybody knows about in Atlanta. It was one of the small regional airports. But anyway, this hangar housed the planes for the governor and the helicopters for the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. And I cleaned it every day, 5 days a week. I was there for about an hour and 10 minutes, 15 minutes at the latest sometimes. I was in and out, and I was home. Well, anyway, so for a few weeks prior to this, the 3rd story of this building, which I didn't say it was mildly secure. It wasn't super max secure, but you did have to go through a gate and show a license and go through security. So it couldn't be you can't just walk through there and get in. You had to kind of go through some hoops to get in. So anyway, so I say all that to say, so it will make more sense to why I said that in just a second. But anyway, at the top floor of this building for a few weeks was an exorbitant amount of trash in these cubicles, and they had just bags of trash just sitting there, and I had to take all this trash downstairs, and it was really heavy because it was these books that these pilots use for the airports in Georgia. It didn't make a lot of sense to me, but the books were really heavy. They were like the size of phone books. I mean, they were really heavy stuff. And I have to walk it all the way down the stairs, come all the way back up, all the way down the stairs again. I mean, I had to make multiple trips, and it was keeping me there for an extra 20 minutes, sometimes even 30 minutes for a few weeks. And it was at a time in my life when I was really stressed. And I asked Maitreya mentally for help. Not for him directly, but just could somebody help me with just this trash? That's all I asked. And didn't really expect him to do anything about it. It was just I was venting, and that's what came out when I was driving one night. Well, anyway, the next week, everything else was the same in the building. I still had to clean the toilets that were dirty and vacuum the paper off the floor and sweep and all that kind of stuff. And the trash in the other parts of the building was there for me. But upstairs in that one side of the building that was not, had so much trash that was causing me such delay, there was no trash. Not 1 ounce of trash in any of the trash cans. And I didn't think anything of it. I didn't go, wow, that was a miracle. I didn't think anything of it. And it happened for 5 days straight. And it eased my tensions. And I was like, okay, fine. I can get through this. Because I was trying to get my wife and my daughter from the Philippines. And that's what really was stressing me out. And then after that, the trash might have come back a little bit, but it wasn't nearly as bad as it was. Anyway, a few weeks after that, or a month or so after that, I was upstairs cleaning that side of the building, or about to clean that side of the building. I was coming out of the men's room that I had just cleaned. And this woman is coming out of that side of the building, and she was the manager of that organization that ran that had all the trash. And she looked at me and she goes, Gary, don't close the door, because the door would lock. She goes, I left my keys on the desk. I just need to the restroom. I'll be right back in. Sure, no problem. And she goes, and tell your associate not to close the door. What associate are you talking about? Remember, this is kind of a semi-secure building. And she goes, the guy that helps you out from time to time. And I went, there's nobody that helps me out from time to time. She goes, yes, there is. And she named the week that all that trash had disappeared, that I totally forgot about. And I started thinking, I was like, oh my gosh, I asked Maitreya for help, and then he came and got the trash. And I never told her that. But I was started to laugh. And I said, what did he look like? And she goes, he was this tall black fella. Very quiet, very polite, just came and got the trash, said hello, and left. Never said he was Maitreya. Never said he was this great spiritual teacher like this Mir Baba. Never said, listen to me and not Jesus. Nothing. He just came and helped me out with the trash, just like a friend would help me out. And then that was it. And her face dropped, and she was like, there was somebody that helped me out, or helped you out, Gary. And I said, it's okay. It's okay. And I never said anything about it. I said, it's okay, Carol. And the funny thing to kind of end this part of the story is, when I wanted to record the video talking about this experience, I could not remember her name. And I asked a picture of the hand of Maitreya, which is one of the many miracle signs that Maitreya said, if you just look at this picture, and the picture is on the Share International site if you want to know more about the hand of Maitreya. But anyway, that's the closest he can get to any one of us until he's out and known for who he is in the world. And if you want to ask for help, he'll do his best to help you, but just look at the hand and ask specifically. So I asked him to help me remember this woman's name. And I thought he would maybe just pop her name and I would just remember it all of a sudden. But no, better than that. The next day, the very next effing day, I'm at work on my job. I work in retail in the public. And this was far away from where the building was that I cleaned. Several miles, like probably over 10 miles away. And this woman comes waltzing right where I work. And I went, oh my God, I know you. You worked at that building that I used to clean over there off the airport. And she goes, yes. And she kind of surprised, like, why is this guy so excited to see me? And I said, what is your name? And she goes, it's Carol. So these aren't inner experiences. They were outer experiences. And again, I can't stress this enough. Maitreya is just a friend and a teacher. Just like your third grade teacher can make the claim that she or he was a teacher. But he's a teacher on the broadest sense. His suggestions will be for the world to help us learn to live with one another. Learn to be more of who we are as divine. But never claiming to be anything. Never claiming to be God or the Christ or whatever. Like that people fear the Antichrist to be. Because my experiences with Maitreya, he never once did that, even with me. But the teachings that he gave me, Jason, the teachings that he gave me, then and even now, I've chewed on those and I've become a better person. He told me one time, he goes, I never judge anyone on whether they're good or bad. I only notice the good things that they do. That was one of the things that he said. And if you look at it from just his standpoint, it doesn't do much for you. But if you apply it to yourself and apply it to your people in your life, it can change your life like it did for me. Because I started with people that I was having problems with at work and that were irritating the fool out of me. And I started noticing one or two things that they were doing that were good, and I stopped being irritated with them. And I was like, you know what? They're not so bad. They at least did this. You know what I'm saying? And it eased that relationship with them. And I actually started to have more meaningful relationships with them. It was based off what Maitreya said. So that's why I think it's real. It hasn't made me enlightened. I'd have never claimed that my teachings and the things that I claim and everything are enlightened or anything like this. Maitreya will never claim that too. It's just try it and see if it works. If it doesn't work, go right back to what you did. And I'll leave you with this. Even if you read Alice Bailey books, at the beginning of the Alice Bailey books, one of the masters, the master Joel Kuhl, even says, don't take this just as truth. Just like people always say the Bible, this is true. You got to believe this. That's why I don't believe it, because they want you so hard to believe that it's true. But the way that the masters approach everything, all their teachings, is just take it and look at it and see if it works for you. If it does, do something with it. If it doesn't, don't. Very detached. But that's the difference. That's the distinction between the two. So hopefully that helps. But anyway, it's getting a little long. But Jason, thank you very much for the comments, and all the others who commented. I didn't get a chance to. I really appreciate your time and commenting as well. You guys take care. Save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.